For the sprawling Cathar Empire, honor was everything. It wasn't just a word. It was currency. It was legacy. It was the law. But their idea of honor was rigid, measured by a single, unchangeable metric: blood. The purity of your lineage, traced back through 1,000 generations of warriors, was the only thing that gave you worth. Your value was literally written in your genes before you ever took your first breath. And on this grand galactic scale of worthiness, humanity was a footnote. A cosmic joke, really. We were known for our laughably short lifespans, our fragile bodies, and our chaotic, emotional societies. We had no ancient bloodlines, no great legacy etched into the stars. The galaxy saw us as clever apes who just happened to stumble upon technology, a temporary race of engineers and traders, useful for the odd job, but ultimately insignificant. We were deemed worthless, incapable of even understanding true honor, let alone having it. This was the undisputed truth of the galaxy, until one man, a simple human engineer, proved them all wrong. Empress Xylia could feel her ship dying around her. The shriek of stressed metal was the soundtrack to her own end. Her royal guard, Cathar warriors bred for honor across 1,000 generations, were the first to die. Their noble bloodline snuffed out in the cold vacuum of a surprise attack. Only the human was left, an engineer named John. His species was a joke, a footnote in galactic history. He was nobody. And yet, as her escape pod launched, she saw him through the viewport. He wasn't running. He was turning to face the ship's exploding core. Alone. In that moment, everything the galaxy and Xylia thought they knew about honor began to crumble. Just 3 weeks earlier, she'd been annoyed by the news. A human engineer assigned to her flagship, the Indomitable Will, a waste of space. He called himself John, a name as plain and unremarkable as his species. Xylia had barely even acknowledged him. And why would she? She was the ruler of 100 worlds, a direct descendant of the first warrior king. Her life was ruled by duty, tradition, and the immense weight of her ancestry. For the Cathar, honor was inherited. A glorious death in service to the Empress would elevate a warrior's entire bloodline for centuries. Service was a transaction, a way to deposit glory into the bank of your family name. Humans had no concept like that. They lived, they worked, they died, and that was it. They formed bonds on fleeting emotions, not the eternal sanctity of blood oaths. From a distance, Xylia had watched John. He was diligent and quiet, with a strange, calm competence that she found unsettling. He moved through the engine room not like a proud warrior, but with the focused humility of a craftsman. He treated the ship's core like it was alive, with a gentle respect her own Cathar technicians lacked. To them, it was just a tool for conquest. It was a curiosity, sure, but a meaningless one. He was, after all, only human. The attack came out of nowhere. A rival faction, the Vorlog, tore a hole in reality, their fleet emerging right on top of them. The Indomitable Will, for all its power, was ambushed and crippled. Alarms blared. The air smelled of ozone and fear. Xylia's royal guard, the absolute pinnacle of Cathar breeding, formed a wall around her. They fought and they died, just as their honor demanded. But they died against an overwhelming enemy, using brutal, unexpected tactics. Their perfect, textbook formations were shattered by pure chaos. Their deaths were glorious, yes, but they were also swift and completely useless. In minutes, the pride of the Cathar Empire was gone, and the ship was tearing itself apart. As the ship groaned its last, Xylia found herself cut off, trying to navigate a burning corridor with the last of her guard. They were making a desperate run for the tertiary escape pods. But a secondary explosion ripped through the deck. Her last 2 guards, with their honor perfect to the very end, used their own bodies to shield her from the blast. their lives instantly extinguished. It was a noble but transactional death, a fair trade, their lives for the preservation of the royal bloodline. Their family names would be celebrated for it. Xylia was alone, wounded, disoriented, and for the first time in her life, helpless. The path ahead was a wall of fire, the path behind a collapsed passageway. The ship's automated voice announced the engine core breach was imminent, and a cold finality washed over her. Her great bloodline would end here, in a fiery, anonymous tomb. That's when a hand grabbed her arm. It was the human, John. His face was smudged with grease and blood, but his eyes were clear and alarmingly calm. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. He just pulled her along, moving with a desperate purpose that she, in her shock, simply followed. He led her through a cramped service duct she never knew existed, his knowledge of the ship's guts suddenly more valuable than any warrior's sword. He wasn't a warrior. He didn't move like one. He didn't carry the weight of a bloodline that demanded a glorious sacrifice. So why was he doing this? He didn't owe her an oath. His people weren't bound to her empire. By all galactic logic, he should have been the first one in an escape pod, desperate to save his own short, insignificant life. Yet here he was, dragging his empress through the bowels of her dying ship. They stumbled into a small hangar bay with a single occupant emergency pod. The red lights of the core breach alarm painted the scene in a hellish glow. 60 seconds to detonation. John didn't hesitate. He practically shoved her into the pod, his movements efficient and sure. She stumbled in and turned back to him, her mind struggling to understand what was happening. "What are you doing?" she demanded, the question sounding foolish even to her. He was already at the control panel, his fingers flying across the surface to start the launch sequence. He looked back at her, and for the first time, she didn't see an insignificant alien. She saw a man. There was no fear in his eyes, only a profound, unshakable resolve. He said, "There's only room for one. An empress is worth more than an engineer." His words hit her like a physical blow. She understood the logic, but the source was all wrong. A Cathar warrior would say something like that, seeing their sacrifice as an investment in their family's legacy. But coming from John, it was completely different. This wasn't a transaction. He wasn't expecting glory. He had no bloodline to elevate. It was a statement of fact from a man who believed it and was willing to die for it without any reward. He sealed the hatch, and the launch sequence fired up. Through the small viewport, Xylia locked eyes with him one last time. He gave a small, tired smile. Then he turned his back on the pod, his only chance of survival, and started running towards the ship's engine core. Maybe to buy a few more seconds, or maybe because it was his post, and he refused to abandon it. The pod shot away from the indomitable will. Xylia pressed her face against the glass and watched as her mighty flagship was swallowed by a blinding, silent flash of light. And with it, the human named John. Adrift in the void, Xylia was utterly alone. The silence felt heavier than any sound. The shock of her survival was at war with a universe of confusion. She replayed the final moments over and over. The chaos, the fire, the deaths of her royal guard, all of that was the brutal but familiar math of war and honor as she knew it. But what the human did, it defied every principle her civilization was built on. He had no legacy to protect, no honor debt to repay. In the Cathar view, a sacrifice without reward for one's bloodline was unhonorable. It was simply a waste. John gave his life for her, an act of pure, selfless nobility that promised him absolutely nothing. He wouldn't be remembered in songs. His name wouldn't elevate his family. By Cathara standards, his death was utterly pointless. And yet it was the most honorable act she had ever witnessed. More honorable than her guards who died for the glory of their name. Their sacrifice was a duty, an expected payment. John's was a gift. He had died not for a bloodline, but for an idea that her life and the stability she represented
mattered more than his own. It was an honor born not of inheritance, but of character, a choice. This was a concept so alien to the Cathar, they didn't even have a word for it. They had words for duty, for legacy, for glory. They had no word for selfless heroism. Jon's sacrifice really makes you think, what is the true measure of honor? Is it something you're born with, or something you choose in a single defining moment? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you love stories that challenge our ideas about humanity's place in the stars, make sure you like and subscribe for more. When Empress Xylia's rescue beacon was finally answered, she was a changed ruler. Her first decree, issued from the medical bay of the rescue ship, wasn't a declaration of war. It was an order that shook the Cathar Empire to its core. She commanded that
all official records classifying humanity as insignificant be completely purged. A new file was to be created, and its first entry would be his name, Jon, engineer of the indomitable will. She then ordered the construction of a monument at the heart of the empire. It wasn't for her fallen royal guard. Their names were already part of their bloodline's history. It was for the human, a simple stone with a simple inscription. He taught us the meaning of a word we did not know: honor. Humanity was no longer a galactic joke. They were now an enigma, a species capable of the highest, purest form of sacrifice, a species worthy not of scorn, but of awe, and the galaxy would never look at them the same way again.